Sharks in the pool, that is not cool. I need the tools, take me to school. Feet first into this league, me first, that cannot be. Under the underdog, Monica G. Feeling a whole lot better suddenly. I get in with it, winning again. You're 1 and 2 in the bag, and I'm going for 3. That is the beat down. God of the best, so I keep. Now, y'all treading water for weeks. Now I'm the shark, so I eat. Now, look, I am not sorry. I understood the pun from which I started. And navigating these drafts is cathartic. So, thanks for the invite to party, yeah. Dynasty underdog bite down. Up at the day and the night. Now, easy as flying a kite. Now, come take a look at it right now. Dynasty underdog bite down. Up at the day and the night. Now, easy as flying a kite. Now, come take a look at it right now.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 175 of Dynasty Underdog. I'm your host, Uriah Dawkins. With me tonight, Billy B-Man. What's up, bud?
We did it, man. We made it. We made it through the regular season.
We did.
Another one in the books. Kind of crazy, right? Like it just came and went.
Yeah, it always seems like that. You know, June, you're just like, I'm ready for football. And then it's here. And then like next thing you know, you blink and we're in the playoffs. Or we're not in the playoffs. But yeah. You know, before we know it, we'll be doing player profiles and having rookie drafts and rinse and repeat. Time flies.
I do think it's funny. Somebody in the Underdog Discord chat. I don't know if I think it was Joe. Maybe I don't know who it was that brought it up, but they were saying that they were a little stressed out all of a sudden. And it's funny because like this time of year, the playoffs is definitely a whole different atmosphere, right? It's winter. It's winter go home. So it's definitely a different feeling, I think. You know, even if you got yourself in the dance, like sometimes it's just a little more anxiety this time of year.
Yeah. And it's like week 7, you could totally get away with like, I don't know, Tank Dell going off for like 30 on your bench or something. And you're like, oh, well, I'll correct that next week. You don't have that now. you can't afford any of that. You know, just like you said, every win matters when we go home. So it's a little stressful, but that's why we play the game. And this next few weeks should be pretty fun.
Yeah. No, I think you nailed it. It's that like lack of control, and I think our buddy in the chat in our Discord said the same thing. It's just, you know, it's kind of, there is a lot more luck in the playoffs than in the regular season, where you have a little bit more control over a roster and decisions, like you said, going forward. So yeah, crazy time of year, but, you know, try to enjoy it. Like I try not to think of it that way. I try to just, you know, roll with the punches per usual and enjoy the ride. Hope I get a win or two here and, you know, enter a final.
Yeah.
At least one.
All right, let's hop into some news and some nonsense. So CJ Stroud concussed. I believe he got hit like helmet to helmet. Well, I mean, I don't even know if this is the play he got concussed on, but he got hit helmet to helmet, and they didn't call a flag. So I did see that happen. But it's a little concerning. I mean, he was out there with Tank Dell on IR. Nico Collins left with an injury. You know, he was doing the best he could with what he had. Hopefully we see him next week.
Yeah, it's gonna be really tough, I think, for him to get back on the field there. The hit, I don't even think it was the helmet to helmet. I'm pretty sure he hit his head on the ground really hard, like back of his head falling backwards, kind of like the Tua type injury. Not nearly as severe, at least from the looks of it. I don't know, you know, internally how severe it was, but yeah, definitely. No, he got body slammed. He got body slammed with a rock bottom.
Jesus.
And yeah, Jake coming in with the comment here. I did see that our Twitter feed was not working super well, but the YouTube is working fine. Yeah, I saw that. It actually notified me. It said there was something going on with Twitter. It looks like it's back up now for the folks on Twitter or viewing on Twitter. Anyway, yeah, Stroud sucks. I think you're going to miss him for this next week of the playoffs. You know, Nico Collins, probably going to miss him as well. No Tank Dell. The team just fell apart completely at the end of the season. So very tough go for everybody who is riding this Houston hype train to the playoffs. I don't think you're going to really get much out of them, at least this next week. Maybe not at all.
Some quick actionable advice would be, if you're in leagues that allow trading all year round, as you should, you know, that might be a really good opportunity to go and get CJ Stroud, Tank Dell, and Nico Collins, either of those players from teams who are in the playoffs who just like lost a lot of firepower there. So I would try to exploit that if you can.
Great advice, Uriah. Right on board with you.
Justin Herbert, finger. I mean,
fractured.
We'll talk about this later, but yeah, I mean, he's probably done for the season. And I mean, in the long run, it probably didn't really matter a whole lot to your dynasty team. It sucks. I guess it sucks to see players like this, especially ones that we had like high hopes for to get injured, but he'll be fine. And hopefully they fix some things next year. Maybe they get rid of Staley. Who knows what's going to happen there in LA.
Matters to my dynasty team. I have a team on a championship run with Herbert that just lost him. Fortunately, I was able to snag Joe Flacco off the waivers last week for all of my fab.
Imagine saying that.
You know, did you think you were going to say that at the beginning of the season? Fortunately, no. I snagged Joe Flacco off waivers.
Like it's
what
2013.
The hell? Literally, yeah. We're just time warp 10 years back. But yeah, no, tough go for Herbert. I mean, he just keeps having these freak injuries. It's like doctor, punctures his lung. Then he just has this like broken finger midseason. He's had rib issues this season, I think also. He's just had tons and tons of injuries that have, hampered his season, held him back a little bit. Plus, he's dragging this suboptimal coaching staff along all season. Like it's just kind of a really bad situation all around. And we've seen, I feel like we've seen situations like this happen before where it's just a completely down year. And I think it's another situation that you can, oh yeah, you didn't get the punctured lung.
It was
Jake,
Tyrod,
thank you for correcting me. It was Tyrod. But yeah, I think that I think going forward, we're going to see a lot better from Justin Herbert. I think, we're going to see coaching staff change. I think we're going to see a lot going forward here, a lot of changes going forward, which are going to be good for Herbert. He's still very young. Exploit this if you can. Like, go get you some Herbert for cheap.
Next one, Tyreek Hill foot. I believe, as of now, still he's kind of questionable whether or not he's going to play, which just sucks because dude really had a chance to, break the all-time receiving record, season-long season. I guess he has one more game to do it than the people before him, but just absolutely dominate season. Imagine that he's better with Tua than he was with Mahomes. It's insane to me what kind of season it has. The legitimate discussion, in my opinion, could he be MVP? Maybe all that goes away now if he misses time, I guess. Sucks. That's all I can say. It sucks.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I was in a daze with the evening game there, but I could have swore I saw him go back in a game briefly, right? Towards the end of the game, I do believe he got back in there. I'm pretty sure he did. Either way, he immediately after the injury, he ran to the sideline with a jolt of energy. So I don't think it's too severe. I think they were just trying to protect their investment, and they thought that they could get a win either way. And I mean, I that game in and of itself was just ridiculous. I can't believe they ended up losing that game with the little amount of time that was left, and the lead they had is just terrible. But yeah, losing Reek or not even just having a injured Reek in the fantasy playoffs it's just so apropos for this season. I mean, it just seems like everybody is. I didn't even put JJ on this list, which we should talk about.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Justin Jefferson comes back, looks solid, then a hospital ball from the Pastronaut, and just takes a chest injury right to the hospital. So it's just again very appropriate for the season we're having here. It is just a lot of injuries, and it's a war of attrition this year, and you're just going to have to roll with the punches, deal with it, and find a way to succeed. It's tough.
We're all doing it. It's not just your team. It's not just this league or whatever. Everybody's going through it. So, sometimes you got to tell yourself when you have a guy go down, I had Nick Chubb go down early, and you feel the type of way about it. You're like, oh, come on. I put together this great team. But everybody else is going through it. People who are navigating those injuries are better. The ones that are trading a little bit more often. So, you're not alone. It sucks. It sucks for all of us, but we have to.
This is disgusting. Carr over Dobbs. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, I mean,
sure. Yeah, we'll talk about Dobbs starting right now. Next week. Yeah, one's starting next week.
Dobbs, aka, I mean, dude played half season, ended up with a dope ass nickname, the Pastronaut, but it just fizzled. He blew like a SpaceX test drive. Like,
Yes.
kaboom, right?
The Challenger, they're calling him, right? The Challenger.
Yeah, Challenger.
Jesus Christ.
So yeah, he's out. Who did they bring in?
It's not bringing in. They had him. Nick Mullins. He was just on IR all season.
Oh, okay, yeah. So Nick Mullins to the moon.
Sure, yeah. It's gross. I feel bad for Dodds. Like what's really interesting to me is I just feel like it's not being talked about enough that I feel like he performed really well over with the Cardinals up until he was traded, and then things went downhill. Like, what happened there? Because by all accounts, this roster is better, right? And so are they putting too much on Dobbs' plate? Like, is this an O'Connell thing where the scheme is just a little too much on the quarterback? I don't know what it is, and I'm not saying it's not Dobbs' fault. Like, he's not – no, I was, again, like, talking a lot of trash about Dobbs prior to the season and how I thought it was that giving up any kind of capital for him was probably a low EV move. But he definitely proved me wrong in some sort of way. I'm just wondering, I guess, like, what changed? And I just think it's funny that, like, everybody turned on him so fast. All it took was, a 4-interception game, which is bad, don't get me wrong, but it was one of, many that he played that, and all the other ones he played pretty well. I don't know. It's just the turn on him was so fast. Like, I guess I'm just interested in that.
Yeah, I mean, fans and Dynasty players and everything else, like we're fickle. We're a fickle bunch.
Yeah.
But I mean, I could be wrong here. I don't have specific names, but I believe that one of the coordinators there in Arizona came over from Cleveland and had some familiarity with Dobbs. And so maybe that's why he felt a little more comfortable in the Arizona system than when he got shipped off to Minnesota. And also, if you're a Vikings fan and you're talking trash about Kirk Cousins, like, that ain't it. Like,
no.
that boy's the best quarterback you've had in the last 10 years. So
absolutely.
You should be more grateful for Kirk Cousins.
And to your point, I mean, maybe it was that Arizona's offense is much more tailored for his style of QB play than Minnesota is, which is typically because of Kirk Cousins, much more of just like a drop back in the pocket kind of position, which is not, what Arizona is doing. Put JJ back in the hospital and even I'll be pissed at him. Yeah, no, it's true. I think that also doesn't go over well with fans, right? You put the best player or one of the best players at his position, comes back in, and you immediately put him back into the hospital, into the blue tent, whatever you want to call it. Like, yeah, that's not going to work for us. So that's part of it too, for sure. And for his own team. That's the best part of it. Bless you. Awesome. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Bless you again. Yes.
Thanks. Ate Sue. All right. So that's the news and nonsense. Let's move on to what did we learn and what stood out. This is crazy, but is it Bailey Zappi season? Well, I want to talk about So they went out there and got the dub. They should have got the dub. In fact, a lot of teams this weekend, I think, ended up with a win that we didn't see happening.
Have.
Yeah, which which is so much better than NBA. Like, NFL teams don't really actually tank. People talk about it, and like we've seen it a couple times, but not really. Like, there's just too many jobs, too many people, too many players, like to go on a full tank. But anyway, yeah, Bailey Zappi won the game. Went to his offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, and was like, "Yeah, bro." And then he went up to Bill Belichick, was like, "Good job." It's like,
he congratulated him.
Yeah.
Which is just ridiculous for a young player to congratulate their 70-year-old head coach. It's like,
congratulations on this little win that doesn't really matter. Very weird, but it does sound like they might be planning on moving on from Bill. So,
yeah, that's the rumors out there, and it's been talked about all season. So it definitely could happen. But I mean, he's under contract, and I could totally see him coming back, which is definitely part of the story here. If he's in town, you have a lot less faith in what they can do offensively, or potentially do offensively going forward. But yeah, Bailey Zappi did look good. I mean, he looked better than Mac Jones. He looked like the best quarterback for the Patriots all season long in this game. And yeah, I mean, pulled out the shocking victory. there's not much actionable here. I don't think that Bailey Zappi is like the quarterback of the Patriots going forward, but I do think he's playing himself into a locked-in backup for this team for sure next year. And just, in the league, which we've seen this year, Jake Browning, Gardner Minshew, like we can go through them all. Dobbs, they're important for your super flex teams. Like these backup quarterbacks matter. So it's worth discussing for sure. And I mean, yeah, I like Bailey Zappi. I'm not going out and buying him, but I think that there's probably trades out there to be made to get these backups on your team that, makes sense. I'm not giving up really too much capital, if capital at all.
All right. We talked about Dobbs getting benched, which is, again, kind of sad, but is Zeke Elliott a league winner? Is there potential for that to be a thing? Is Ramondre Stevenson on IR, or is he just hurt?
He's not on IR. He's just hurt. But, we did see that hip drop tackle. It was pretty gnarly one on the ankle there. I'd be surprised if we get him back for the fantasy playoffs. I mean, maybe you get him week 17, like championship week, but even then he's going to be kind of banged up. And I think that Zeke is probably just the guy going forward for the rest of the season. They're just going to ride him all the way to the finish line. So I love Zeke for contenders this year. He's so cheap, and you could probably trade, back end injured guys. Like I think I traded, I talked about it. I traded Dobbins for him in one league.
Yep.
Straight up. So there's a lot of opportunity to go get Zeke. Jake traded away Mac Jones, kept Bailey Zappi, master stroke in DU3. Gotta love that. Gotta love that.
I agree with you on Zeke.
Yeah.
Funny little stat is that Zeke's performance this last week scored more fantasy points than Pollard has all season. Not cumulative, but like he had a better week than Pollard has had.
I mean, I don't think it's crazy to say that if they kept Zeke, that he would have outscored Pollard all year long.
I always liked the idea of Pollard and Zeke.
It worked for a long time. There was no reason to think it wouldn't work again. I think it just came down to money, age, and time. It just happens sometimes. But yeah, Zeke, man, he's looking really spry. He looks like his old self for the fantasy playoff run here. So if you got him and you need him, lucky you.
Yeah. DeVito, is he the real deal? I don't know, man. I can't.
How many backup quarterbacks are we going to talk about this year?
It's just been that year, man. I don't understand.
Like,
I don't want to be sitting here talking about what Tony DeVito, Danny DeVito. I don't even know what his first name
Tommy
is.
DeVito, Tommy.
Doesn't matter. I'm gonna call him Tammy. But
it don't matter what your name is. Yeah, like he looks good, dude. Like I think he's similar to Bailey Zappi, and where I think I said this before, like he's turning himself into a really good backup option in the league. But I will we don't know what's going to happen with Daniel Jones. I could see them potentially drafting a guy and having Tommy DeVito kind of start the season for them next year. Like, why go back to Daniel Jones when you see what Tommy DeVito? I don't know. I just feel like it's a good way to just churn their team into the next quarterback, because I imagine that it's not one of these two guys. Definitely not Daniel Jones. They might try to add him this year. I mean, maybe they try to add him the year after this. It depends where the draft position is like, but there's so much going on in that QB room. It's just so ugly. DeVito's definitely worth having on your dynasty rosters. Like he's scoring a lot of points. He's in a lot of not plus matches, but in a lot of good game scripts for what we want for fantasy purposes. And with the state of the QB position, like right now, I don't know, like I would love to get a second. If I had him, I would love to sell him for a second. Like I think you could do that. We saw a trade that I didn't put on the list here to talk about later, but it was in DU3. We saw Jake Browning go for a second round pick. So I think you can do similar stuff with a DeVito, maybe send a fourth along with DeVito for a second and kind of do that. So I think with these backup quarterbacks, like I've been trying to sell Gardner Minshew, same thing. I think that's the kind of thing you should be looking to do, make an opportunity out of it.
Yeah. I think one of my biggest mistakes this year, just because I didn't realize how it was going to pan out, was not going harder for the backup quarterbacks off of waivers. Because you just don't assume they're ever going to be anything. And yeah, you're seeing seconds getting thrown around for Browning, and you probably get like a third or more for Minshew, players like that. Like, there's some opportunity there that could have just cost you a little bit of fab if I had been so like stubborn. Like, why do I want this backup quarterback? I don't need him on my team. Well, now is why you need him, because there's other people that are probably looking to solidify their 2 QB situation. So
it's weird, right? Like CJ Beathard is probably sitting out on your waivers, but should he? Like he's the backup to Trevor Lawrence, and we just saw Trevor Lawrence get injured, and then he goes in. And do we want CJ Beathard? Probably not. But like, is he worth rostering? Yeah, I'm coming around a lot more to when I find like those kind of backups on the waivers. Like typically, we're not going to have this bad of an injury riddled season, but in the rare cases that it happens, you're going to want all these guys on your roster for, at the very least, shopping them around for future value when you don't need them and contenders do.
All right. So Jordan Love, not so good. We go back and forth about this all off season, and my only answer is it's hard to tell. We've seen him play just like lights out. First 4 games to start the season. Then he had a little slump, and then he pulled out another like late season 3-game run that was, wow, Jordan Love's looking really, really good again. Green Bay did it again. They went from Favre to Rodgers to Love. It's just hard to tell. I don't really know. I don't really know what to say. I'm not interested in buying or selling him, or I'd sell him if I had him probably, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would definitely like to sell him, not right now, because I think that his dynasty value fluctuates pretty greatly depending on performance. So if he has a good game or two, everybody's back on Jordan Love is a potential superstar and yada yada yada. And I don't know where to fall in necessarily, because I feel like I've fallen into the trap a little bit, because we talked about him over the past couple weeks, over the past month, in terms of the last few weeks prior to this game. He has looked better. He has played better. His completion percentage has gone up. All those things, but you come into this game where they're playing a Giants team that is definitely not the toughest matchup they've gone up against this season, and just getting crushed. I mean, just getting crushed, and he looked bad. He's making bad passes, bad decisions. Everything that you don't want to see out of a young quarterback are the things you're seeing. For me, I think he's just done enough where he played himself into another year with this team, and that gives him a chance to develop further. And again, I've said this, he hasn't seen much game time. He hasn't been on the field much. So while I'm with Uriah, I'm definitely not going to actively buy him for any reason, unless he's part of a package or something like that, and it makes sense for like a rebuilding team. But for the most part, yeah, I think I'm just staying away. I'd probably sell him if I could, when he spikes in another week or two here, because I'm sure he will. It seems to be kind of the, I don't know, just the player he is, a little bit streaky. So, I'm a little bit with Uriah. I'm not certain on him, but I'm wavering. Jake here, I think the influx of spotlighting young QBs with no draft capital is more about systems being well taught than DeVito or Browning being randomly good. Yeah, I don't think they're randomly good either. That's definitely true, but I think we're exploiting dynasty value, and I think he'd agree with that as well.
All right, are we worried about Bryce Young?
Yeah, I'm starting to get worried about Bryce Young. It's just you don't see enough moments from him. There's just not really any throws or anything that he does where you're like, wow, that's it right there. And even kind of dissecting NFL defenses, which I thought he was going to be able to come in and really, exploit teams with his high IQ. It's not there yet. It's not translated. So, the coach, like Jake said this before too, he doesn't want any part of this team just because he doesn't trust what the coaching staff will become. He doesn't trust any of the weapons and what they will be. And, they're about to be slotted for the first overall pick again. And who knows what obviously you don't think they're going to draft a quarterback with that. Do they give him Marvin Harris? They're probably not going to draft Marvin Harrison 1 overall in the NFL draft. What are they going to give him? And how are they going to fix the offense to make Bryce Young look good? So the outlook is so bleak. It's hard for me to kind of strike up a narrative in my mind that's like, yeah, this guy's going to turn it around, or they'll help him turn it around, whatever it is,
Yeah. Bryce Young hasn't been super fun to watch, but I'm not out on him again. I'm not
True.
looking to go get him. If I have him, I'm just holding. But he doesn't have. I mean, here I am. I'm going to stick up for him just a little bit, but he doesn't have anybody to throw to. Not really. He has a bunch of wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3s, and washed up really good wide receiver 2.
AKA Adam Thielen.
Yeah, and that worked out for a little while until Adam Thielen got gassed because he's old. Offensive line is not good at all. I mean, every single play. Maybe this is him doing this, but like he's running for his life every single play. You see it in the time to throw, and there's a graph that one of the guys I follow from PFF puts out. Like there's a time to throw versus yards of separation and the wide receivers. It's like he doesn't have any time to throw, and his receivers aren't getting open. Like, what are you supposed to do as a rookie quarterback? And the scheme price sucks too. Like the coaching staffs, the front office is terrible, and hiring coaching staffs. We've seen it. They're paying Matt Rule for like the next 6 years. Like they make terrible decisions,
and they're going to be paying Frank Reich too.
And they're going to be paying Frank. Thank you, and they're going to be paying Frank Reich too. Like this, it's not an organization that I feel knows what the hell they're doing. But they have a young star who, I'll call him a star, first overall draft pick, right? Bryce Young. But he has no time to throw the ball, and he has nobody to throw it to. So it's really hard to discredit him as a player. Like Aaron Rodgers had had a down year. 2019 it was looking terrible, but it was kind of the same thing. He didn't have anybody to throw to, and he didn't have a lot of time. He had Devontae Adams, so that's about it. So even one of the greatest quarterbacks that we've ever seen play has down years. So maybe this is just, Bryce Young's down year, and maybe they'll figure it out. But, that's all the positivity I could say. It doesn't look good.
Yeah, I would like to see some highlights from him, and I really don't see much. Like even, some great players make something out of nothing, and you just haven't seen that much of it. And I think the best we've seen of Adam Thielen was probably when Andy Dalton played. So again, he's a rookie, like a lot to learn there. And like you said, no time to throw. And I agree, no weapons. So he's behind the 8 ball in every aspect. But that doesn't give me hope for the future because I don't know how all of that gets turned around in 1 year or even 2. Like it's going to be, it's a lot. Like
it kind of reminds me of Trevor Lawrence's rookie year, where everyone's like, oh, he's going to be a bust. It's like, well, this dude's been like the quarterback throughout his whole time in college, but we didn't even have to say the names. He had a terrible coaching staff. He had nobody to throw to, and his offensive line was hurt before the season pretty bad. You get Doug Peterson in there, which is a guy we know because he went to a Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl, took some time off. They brought in and traded for they brought in Christian Kirk to give him the highest contract out of any free agent wide receiver that year. And also that year, they went ahead and made a trade for Calvin Ridley. Circle back. This is year 3. Trevor Lawrence is looking pretty good. I will say the one caveat to that is even during Trevor Lawrence's rookie season, there was like that 1 or 2 passes every single game. You're like, that's why he went over, like number 1 overall. That's why, like that, absolute dart.
Glad you
not a
said
whole
it
lot of
for
people
me.
could. Not a whole lot of people can make that throw. You're like, okay, this is okay. Just he needs something else going on. I haven't seen those from Bryce Young yet.
And that's what I'm missing right there. So yeah, you nailed it. Like I agree to an extent to where I'm like, but where are the throws where I'm like, wow, like okay, that's what I've been looking for. So yeah, like I'm not buying Bryce Young. I would like to move on from Bryce Young, and I'm trying to think for like, I mean, would you sell Bryce Young for Will Levis in a second?
No, draft capital, man.
Does it need to be a first for you to get there?
Probably.
Yeah, I think Will Levis, based on what we've seen, has just as much a chance to start and remain a starter as Bryce Young. Unfortunately, draft capital be damned.
Sure.
So yeah, I think I might make I think I might take the risk and take on the second and Will Levis, but that's definitely hot, and it comes with a lot of risk. But I think that's kind of where we're heading and where we're approaching, where we might be at.
All right. So segment you wanted to do, kind of talk about like what went wrong this season, like who we were wrong on, situations and all that. So it's kind of fun to look back on. Well, I'll go first here. So
you're like, this is fun to some people, not me. But yeah, I just think it's like, what's the word I'm looking for? I just think it's like accountable. Just to like, you're never going to talk about all the things you hit on and miss on, and we always like to give ourselves some props here and there. But I think it's a good activity, a good practice to kind of look back and at least talk about some of what you got wrong and why you got it wrong. Like it's really not, I don't even care necessarily what I got wrong most of the time. Like I do care what I got wrong. But it's more about why I got it wrong.
You nailed it. Yeah. So for me, I still don't know why. So Chargers, I was wrong on the Chargers in general.
Brandon Staley, that's it.
That has to be it, right? So, but it seems like they don't want to move on from him yet. Like, I don't understand, but the Chargers, I was super high on the Chargers, man. We lost Kellen Moore. And now people are like, well, was it Dak? Was it Kellen? Blah, blah, blah. Maybe Dak's just good. But you can't deny the fact
to be the case.
But you can't deny the fact that once Kellen Moore took over play calling duties there in Dallas, that Dallas Cowboys had like the number one scoring offense for like 3 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean,
yes.
You would think that would carry over with Kellen Moore going to the Chargers, who have another really good quarterback and some pretty good weapons. Which is a big reason why, when I was making my selection for my rookie wide receiver, although I really like QJ's profile to begin with, Quentin Johnston, the fact that he was going to be paired up with Kellen Moore, Justin Herbert, and two often injured wide receivers, Keenan Allen's going to miss a game. Mike Evans going to miss a game. Period. I thought for sure this would be a really good chance that QJ would have a chance to turn into something, late in the season, really pick it up at the beginning of his second year, that type of deal. Now I'm not so sure about this at all. The only thing I think I could say I got right about the Chargers, but I think that Austin Eckler he's just old. He's an old running back. And that's he's going to slow down, and he has. But that whole entire offense, I thought they'd be dropping 30 burgers nearly every week, shootouts every single week. But like they've looked really dormant. The offense doesn't look good, and I'm really shocked at that, I guess.
I mean, I like just thinking back to the end of last year and just last year in general. Like this is worse, but this isn't a very large departure from what we've seen from the Chargers in the past, right? Like at least this iteration of them. Granted, Moore is a more recent and newer addition, but outside of that, they've been a shaky team that is inconsistent, that doesn't come up in big moments, that makes boneheaded coaching decisions at time. Can't manage the play clock, like the whole 9 yards. Like you just run down the list. Like they kind of check all the boxes on like what you don't want to see in the pressure moments. And that's not something that is new to this year. So if I'm looking at it, I think the only thing we can do is what I think happens with the Chargers. And it's inevitable and it's hard to get away from, but it's great quarterback, great receiver, awesome running back. They should just be good. You guys should just be good. Like who cares about all the other stuff, right? But all the other stuff does seem to matter. Brandon Staley, his coaching style does matter and has not been successful for this team. So, it's kind of, I think, looking at that without the rose-colored glasses on because we want it to be the way it is, or we want it to be a certain way. But it's hard not to get excited about the Kellen Moore edition. So I totally get that. You see him do what he did in Dallas and you're like, this is going to be incredible, right? And so you can't really fault yourself in that respect, but sometimes you have to, I think, analyze these things without, again, like some of that bias, because you are coming into it with Cowboys bias. That is part of it, right? You're saying like, my team was great with this guy. He's going over here. it's going to change what we have seen. And that's, you're trying to project and you're trying to do those things. But sometimes I think having a little bit of, just being self-critical, I think a little bit in those moments, just saying like to yourself, like, hey, like, am I definitely going down the right path? Again, a lot of people went down this path with you. So I don't think that it was a huge miss on your part. Is just, really, really tough situation for everybody.
All right. Another one that
All
stood
right.
out to me. Oh, go ahead.
Yep. No, please go.
Another one that stood out to me was just my perception of the Miami running backfield. And want nothing to do with Mostert because he's old, gets injured a lot. I mean, he's like 31, right?
He is 31, yeah.
Yeah. So I know what 31 feels like, and I couldn't be out there.
My knees hurt.
And then they draft Devon Achane, and he's just a smaller dude. And yeah, he did get hurt a little bit, but I was like, I don't want any of that. I don't want the old guy, and I don't want the tiny guy. I don't want anything to do with these guys. And that running backfield's been just amazing, absolutely amazing. Probably Mostert and Achane are probably just guessing. I know Mostert's in the top 5 in rushing yards, and Achane can't be that too far behind. I mean, top 12 maybe. Gotta be close. I mean, I think he missed some time, but it's gotta be. Can't be too far off. It's just insane what they were able to do there with the running backs. Sitting there thinking, oh, they have Tyreek Hill, they have Jalen Waddle, like. Why do I even want these like questionable running backs? And they've just been nothing but amazing.
Yeah, Achane has not played much, but he's still sitting there as a top 30 back.
Okay, top 30, yeah.
And I don't have it in points per game here, but Mostert's running back 2 on the season overall.
Yeah,
and I think like 3rd in points per game. So
insane.
Maybe 4th, but he's crushing it. Yeah. I think this
we
one
all
is
got
based
Mostert for like a 3rd.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think, and I have a fair amount of teams that have Mostert on it, like competitive teams where I got him, either for a 3rd, literally off of somebody last year, or in like a deal, where he didn't cost me much or he was just an add-on. But I think this is a case of like just believing in the scheme, man. The Shanahan scheme is undefeated. Like that scheme, crazy. And not just that, he brought Mostert and Wilson over. So, at the very least, they're late round guys. You just got to get them on your team. I think the Achane piece of it, I think is important to monitor over the next couple of years and try not to let ourselves fall into the age-old bias of small guy can't play in the NFL. They can now. And it's because teams are willing to give them the opportunity. Can they hold up in the NFL? That's a different story. That's a whole different story. But we shouldn't be seeing these guys. We aren't. I mean, they're not giving Keaton Mitchell out here 15 carries a game. They're just not going to do it. But they have the ability to bust one wide for 50-yard touchdown. So we have to open ourselves up to the idea that these guys are going to be more successful than they used to be in the NFL, and that we don't need to run scared away from them. So I think this was just, it was first Devonta Smith. He proved us wrong. Then it's, Tank Dell. Then it's Achane. And this is all in a shorter period of time, but you can see this is the way that college football, the NFL is going. We need to sharpen up and we need to get with the times.
Absolutely.
Okay. I got a couple here. Try not to spend too much time on all of them, but I'm just going to run through them and maybe we can circle back on a couple of these. We'll do that. So Kyler Murray, I think, is one where I missed on. And the short of it is too risk averse, right? Like I've done this time and time again where guys get injured. I think I took advantage of it with Deshaun Watson in 1 or 2 spots and taking on that risk. But it's just a guy who, I haven't always believed in, but he has always been a top fantasy scorer. And, the whole time this offseason, I'm saying he can't come back with this knee injury and be the same guy on the ground. And he was kind of need to believe in modern medicine, just being better than it used to be. And not being afraid of some of these assets that I have had some like past bias with, but know that they're good fantasy assets. Rachaad White is another one just like that, where it's like, I don't really like him as a player. I don't think he's the best running back. And I think we've seen time and time again, he's an inefficient runner, but it doesn't really matter because he catches passes and he's really good at it. And that's going to keep him, and that's going to keep him on the field. So, I think that's what went wrong with Rachaad White there, is just not kind of seeing the forest for the trees. Like, he's just a good pass catching running back and he's going to continue to get work. And there wasn't anybody else in town. Mike Evans on the same team, age didn't matter and QB play wasn't as big a factor. And with guys like Mike Evans, who have just proven to be absolutely dominant players, QB play doesn't really matter with those guys, does it? So I probably shouldn't have been, knocking him for that. And then the QB wasn't really that bad. So I think I just kind of misread that situation all around. And that's one of those where it's like trying to get out a year early and you just miss on it. Sometimes that happens, but I think I could have read that situation slightly better. I faded the rookie tight ends this year, which I think was and is becoming something that we need to stop doing. Just like the small guys are becoming, more utilized by NFL teams and more widely accepted, tight ends are becoming, they're coming into the NFL more NFL ready. They're coming into the NFL and being utilized more year one. And we need to get on board with the fact that we might not need to wait 3 years for every tight end to break out. And it might be worth spending a second round pick on some of these guys like Sam Laporta, who I think, this pod was probably running away from spending high capital on those guys and trying to maybe go get them later, which is definitely, there's opportunity for that. I think the sweet spot is probably at second round if you can get guys in there and not have to pay up for the first. Tank Dell, right in that, the same conversation with HN. We don't need to harp on that one. And then the last one here I do want to touch on because I think it's an interesting one is Jerry Jeudy, right? Just never lived up to the profile. Injuries, coaching changes, consistent coaching changes, QB changes his entire career, at least, the first couple years. Sometimes you're just simply wrong on a player. Like, I think that can be true. I think that the profile can look good. I think that they can be a solid player, but I think that it just doesn't work out. And I think that, and I don't think we like that because it's not a clean answer. We want a reason. We want a reason why these guys didn't work out. It was because they were injured or it was because they were a bad player? I don't think that's the case with Jerry Jeudy, man. I think that everything has gone wrong. I don't think it's ever really come together for him. And I don't know if it ever will. Like, he's on the trajectory to just be one of those guys who is wholly mediocre, unfortunately. And I think that's a misread that's a misread. As a talent evaluator, there's probably something there along the way where, you have to kind of see what's going on. And I've gotten there, at least at this point, and I've gotten out or off of all my shares. So I guess better late than never. But yeah, missed big on Jerry Jeudy once again.
Yeah, these are all really good. Also, shout out to Deuce Vaughn. I thought he'd have a role. But
me too.
I thought he'd have at least a role, but being inactive every week is kind of like,
and like it kind of drives me. It kind of drives me crazy because anytime we did see him preseason, and like, I'm not saying that he was not missing assignments. Maybe he was missing blocking assignments here and there, and that's what they're just like, we're done with you. But it seems like he could be as impactful as a Rico Dowdle, like not in the same way, but like, give him, I don't know. It's shocking to me that they're giving him 0 touches. I wonder if he's injured or something like that. I mean, maybe he's small as shit. Don't get me wrong, but I really thought he'd get on the field.
Yeah, me too. But going back to yours, Rachaad White's a big one. I don't think he's a very good player, but watching him this year with getting the opportunities he's had, every time he has the ball open in space, like, he looks like, one of the better running backs with the ball in his hand. I don't think he particularly still rushes through the tackles very well, but I've come around on him enough that I traded for him like a week ago in a league. So I even said in the chat, I was like, I don't trade for players that I don't really truly believe in, but like, the numbers don't lie. Like, he's having a really good year. But I don't think fading him was necessarily wrong on paper. It's just he's just doing better than I thought we would. Mike Evans, yeah, this is one. I mean, I think most of us were running to trade him away as fast as we possibly could because we thought it was the end. He's just not. He's just built different. Fitting the rookie tight ends, I would just tell you not to go back to look at any of your rookie drafts and see who you took over Laporta. Just don't do that to yourself. It's not really worth it. Tank Dell, the same thing. I really like Tank Dell's profile. I like him a lot, actually, by the numbers. But I liked Rondell Moore a lot by the numbers. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not doing the small wide receiver stuff anymore. I'm just not doing it. Even Devonta Smith's like rookie season wasn't that great. I was like, I'm just not doing these thin, small, tiny wide receivers anymore. I'm just not going to get burnt that way, no matter how much I love them. Fucked up. I messed up. I messed up real bad there. And Judy, yeah. Judy was a guy, I don't even know why I traded for him, but I didn't trade for him. I traded him away, or got him in a trade. We'll say that. I didn't trade for. I didn't actively go get him.
Mm-hmm.
But that's my first share and only share. But I was always worried about the way his knees bend. I always thought he'd be injured quite often. I was worried about ACL, MCL. I mean, I think I've mentioned it on here before, but like when he cuts in his knee, it just bends inward differently than most humans. So that's kind of what made me try to stay away from him. But yeah, this is a good list. This is a good list.
Yeah, I think, we're gonna make mistakes, but sometimes you can learn from them. So you got to reflect on your season sometimes and think back to like, where could I have done a little bit better? I think that's just part of this, quick look back.
All right, home league tanking debacle. What's this all about?
Oh yeah, no, we had a. I don't know. I feel like I want to talk through this.
That's what we're here for.
We had I commish a 10-team dynasty league with a bunch of my buddies from high school and college, and one of our buddies who has a pretty solid team, I think he's just had a year, whatever, just a year. He's just can't focus on fantasy or whatever it is. Really solid team. Hadn't really set his lineups all year. Was losing matchups he probably shouldn't. And then as the season's unfolding towards the end, somebody who's been setting their lineups and is tanking just because they're getting crushed is potentially going to lose out on the 101 to this person because this person hasn't set their lineups, right? And they're like, no, dude, come on. Like, what are we doing here? Like, and then this week, right, the last week of the fantasy season, the person who is, we'll say, correctly tanking, properly tanking, is in last place, and the other person who has not been setting their lineup is in second to last place, playing me. Didn't start like Josh Allen, didn't whatever. Started Bryce Young over Josh Allen, yada yada yada. Loses to me, and the other person wins their matchup. So they effectively lose the 101 to this person who has been improperly tanking. Now, if they had started all their players, they would have beat me, and it wouldn't have impacted I'm number one in the league, and I'm like 2 games ahead. So it wouldn't have impacted any playoff standings at all, but it's impacting obviously the draft order at this point. So we've never done anything about his team all year long. You know what I mean? And yeah. I don't care. Again, I don't care about the matchup, but like, I don't know if it sets bad precedent for like just one game to like set his lineup to get the win, or do we do a league vote, and if we get majority vote says switch 101 and 102, we do that. Like, how would you approach this as a commissioner? Because like, again, this is like people I know, they're my boys, and like, of course, it's like the most heated discussion out of any of my leagues. I'm like, can't we just get along here? And there's one more wrinkle to it is the person who has been improperly tanking, we'll say, I've reached out and I'm like, yo, you like start players that are not on bye, like, set your lineup, bro. And he's like, yeah, for sure. And he did it. And then this week comes along and he's not, and the person that is trying to get the 101 hits them up in like a group chat with some of these other guys and is like, start like set your lineup, dude. And he's like, no, I got to lose this game. So this one, he intentionally, so there's I know I left out that wrinkle, but so at the end of the day, like this one is intentional. So like that one threw me for a loop where I was like, dude, like we've been talking about it in the chat. Underdog under the hood is a solid use for venting. This technically wasn't under the hood, but you know what? We're under the hood now. So we ended up here. We traveled under the hood. So yeah, it wasn't even as like, but that got me when I was like, oh, so now you're intentionally doing it. And we've been talking about it in the league chat, and he hasn't been in the league chat talking about nothing. We've been like talking about changing the tanking rules for next year because to max points 4, yada, yada, yada. And one last thing to clarify, I took this league over as a commissioner late year 1. So obviously I would have set some of these rules up differently to prevent some of the current situations, but this is where we're at. What would you do?
Well, it sounds like the commissioner's not been doing his job all year.
It's hard to like. I gotta go watch everybody's roster and make sure they're all setting a lineup. Like
it's only 10 teams. Yeah, I don't know.
Max points 4, which will be the setup going forward. But anyway,
what's the buy-in?
It's $100. It's a solid league. I know.
Honestly, okay. So if dude hadn't said, "Look, I know I should start a lineup, but I need this loss now," all of a sudden, I feel like that's disingenuous. Realizing you haven't been playing the game, quote unquote, the right way all season, and now you give a shit. I just put it to a vote.
I think I'm gonna put it to a vote. The only thing is like the rest of the games start on Thursday, or like a game starts Thursday, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of like replacing the players in the lineup, I guess we could try to get a vote done before then. But yeah, something has to be done, right? Like it can't stand this way. Like
normally I'm all for like letting people manage the way they want to manage, but he only managed 1 week. And it's the one week that actually mattered.
Yeah, and it's also and also like I think it does matter that he said that he needed the loss and he was intentionally tanking in this week specifically.
Yeah.
And he had like bye week players in the lineup and stuff. So it's like, I can only help you so much, my guy. Like, what are we going to do here? Like, you got to, anyway, I don't think there's a big difference between the 101 and the 102. It's a 1 QB league. So I mean,
it doesn't matter. But
I mean, there probably is a big difference because Marvin Harrison Jr. and then what after that in a 1 QB league? There are other good assets, don't get me wrong, but I think that's kind of the thought process. So it matters a lot for the 101. I don't think it matters as much for him because his team's really good. So I think he's going to have to take the L here with the 102. And don't ever out yourself like that, bro. Like he literally sent, like there's a screenshot of what he said in the time. Like, bro, there's the evidence is right there. Like, what are we going to do? So I don't know. Yeah. This was a tough one, but yeah, I think it's going to go to a league vote and we're going to have to somehow find a way to alter the pick, whether it's giving him
possible points next year.
Oh, absolutely. It's max point. It's on Sleeper. We're going to do max. I already told everybody what we do in other leagues and how that would prevent anybody from trying to do that. Because like then you would have to be an asshole trying to not get, like, you basically would have to be looking at the playoffs and saying, oh, my matchup, they need me to, win this game or whatever to help them out, like whatever it is, you know what I mean? Or my buddy, like they need me to win this game. No, I don't want him to get into the playoffs. I'm going to specifically lose this matchup when it has nothing to do with my points for my draft order or anything like that. You'd have to be a real piece of work to kind of, mess with the standings just because you can in that case. So yeah, that's going to be the change. Thought it was interesting to bring up just one of those funky ass things that happens, and a very home league-ish thing that doesn't happen in other leagues, man.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. It's so weird. Anyway, all right, move on to trades and non-trades.
Trades and non-trades. All right, this is yours.
Oh, I mentioned this earlier. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. Dobbins for Zeke. So, actually, this was after Zeke had the game. It was like before the rest of the games, and I was just like, let me go. Like somebody, honestly, the way I thought about it was, I think I'm number 1 in that league. I think so. I think either number 1 or 5th. Either way, I'm a playoff team. But my thought was like somebody's going to go get Zeke, and I'd rather it be me for really cheap than not. And I thought Dobbins was kind of a really good asset to move for a guy like Zeke. Where I mean, he definitely could have some value going forward. I imagine he will be semi-productive, a la James Robinson when he came back, kind of thing. From his injury, maybe, you know what I mean? Which, again, is not a super valuable asset. So I figured it's kind of like trading a 3rd or a 4th for Zeke kind of deal at this point.
Yeah, I like it. Go get that dub.
Cool. Okay. which one was this. I'm trying to think. This was was this one you put in?
No.
This was okay. Sorry, no. This was a trade I received that I rejected. I think.
Okay.
Flacco, Vaughn, and a third for a second.
If I'm continuing to need a quarterback, I might do that.
Yeah, I definitely if your team like was like the number one team in the league and you lost your super flex position quarterback and like you're like I just need to fill this position with like a quarterback who's going to score points, I could see doing that because I do think Joe Flacco is going to give you some solid points going forward here. But I would hate to do it, man. That is a win for the second round pick, obviously, long term.
All right, this next one's mine. 24 first for Rashad and a fourth. We talked about last week. I got an offer. Someone sent me like Browning and Rashad for, I think the first and second. It was textbook, shout out textbook in the DU listener leagues. And then I went back and looked at my team and I realized Charbonnet may or may not play. I really could use one more running back. I've already spent like a 25 first. Like I'm ready to go. I got like one of the best teams in the league, at least top 3. And so I was like, I actually do need that running back. And Rashad Wright's been really good. I threw it out there first for Rashad and a fourth. I expected a counter of Rashad for the first, but he said, hey, let's just go. He's trying to rebuild. He didn't plan on rebuilding, but he already got a first from me for Etienne early in the season. And now he's got my other first for his Rashad. And yeah, I'm just hoping to go out and win the whole thing.
Nice job stacking up some firsts there for sure on his side, just in general, kind of his strategy. Yeah. But yeah, like there's a wire in my brain that says don't like Rashad White no matter what. So for some reason, like this bothers me, but it's clearly a good deal. Like it just clearly is. Like he's scoring a ton of points. There's no reason to think that he won't have this role or do something similar going forward. Just kind of given how successful he's been in the role. So I don't think he's going to suddenly fall off a cliff for you. I don't think he'll always be worth a first for you, but I do think that he'll hold enough value where you can kind of get back a second if you needed to for some reason, second plus. But this year for sure, I think it's a great move given your team structure and trying to go for the ship. So I think it's a good move. I like it. But it's a risky one and something that I personally would have a hard time doing, but I do like the move. I think it's a good move.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about next year at all when I made this trade. But just to be honest, I just figured, hey, I had one more running back with a pretty strong team, so you got to pay to play. So that's just kind of how I looked at it. The other one is
real quick before we move on, the Flacco deal that we just talked about, that was a deal that Jake sent me. He says he feel like he sent that, and I do recall he did, and it got promptly rejected.
All right, get out of here. This last one is it's kind of like what you were talking about, trying to move for Zeke quick. Paul from Console Wars hit me up for a Zeke trade pretty quick. Trying to get ahead of the curve there. I've had a deal with somebody else for Zeke and Taysom, and they're like, well, Zeke's already played. Taysom's not playing this year. I'm in no rush to move him. I'm in a rush to kind of move Zeke. I probably could have spent a little more time trying to do something else, but he's like, hey, I'm interested in Zeke. I said, all right. And he's like, all right, I sent you an offer. It was Jerome Ford for Zeke. I said, fine. Yeah, I'll take the younger guy. They're basically kind of the same player possibly going forward. I don't know what kind of role Jerome Ford's going to have going forward. But he's younger than Zeke, and that's kind of the same guy for me. And I'll just take the younger running back right here. I don't need the points. I'm not contending at all. I'm not in the playoffs. So
yeah, I mean, I love I love getting Ford here. I think, I think Ford has shown some really good stuff. Like
he looks great. Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody's, Chubb's going to be back. I saw somebody literally just the sentence was Chubb's going to be back. Like,
I don't know. Maybe. I hope so, but I don't.
It's very unlikely he's going to be the same player. And I don't want this to be like the Kyler Murray thing all over again, but where I'm like, oh, knee, he needs that to run, like not going to be good again. But he's also like a 28-year-old running back who just had another significant knee injury. It's not good. So I think Jerome Ford will likely get as many touches, if not more touches than Chubb rest of career. And at the very least, just in terms of comparing to Zeke, he's going to have many more opportunities than Zeke will, going forward and have a much longer shelf life. That's just obvious. So I like that move, especially when you're not contending.
Thanks. Yeah. And the trade was easy. There was no back and forth or anything like that. It just made sense for me. I'm like, well, as far as points and all that stuff go for the rest of the year and all that, like it's kind of the same player. And hopefully next year Ford gets more opportunities than Zeke does. That's just kind of how I looked at it.
Yeah. Paul's a good trade partner. Definitely.
Yeah. I wish I had Cam Akers because then he could send me 2 firsts.
Damn, never let him live it down. I love it.
I can't do that. Yeah. I don't.
It's great.
Lot,
it's a good bit, to be honest with you.
Thanks. All right. Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Nah, man. We ran the gamut. I feel like we talked about everything.
We usually do. All right. Thanks everyone for giving us a listen to this week's episode of Dynasty Underdog. Follow us on Twitter at Dynasty Underdog. Follow me at Uriah Dawkins, Billy at Willie Beeman DFF. Join our Discord. It's awesome on Sundays and pretty much every day of the week. Just talking Dynasty and whatever else you want to talk about. Hit us up on YouTube. Usually our shows are live on there, and listen to us on Spotify if you can. Other than that, have a good night.
Crushed it, man. Take it easy.